Hey everyone, I'm Spencer.
I'm Lara, and we're Married with Board Games. In this review, we're going to take a look at a game that is directly based on a movie from the 70s. Now, the idea of playing a game that follows plot points of a movie is a really neat idea in theory.
But we want to know how that actually plays out when you get the game to the table. We've played through several movies of Planet of the Apes, the latest cooperative game from Richard Launius and IDW Games, and we want to tell you if it works.
But first, let's head over to the table for a quick overview of how to play.
Here's Planet of the Apes. Now I realize this is a wide-angled view, that you're not going to be able to see everything in this state. I did just want to go ahead and show you what comes in the game and how it might look set up on the table, to show you the shape of the board and all the different components. What you're trying to do in this game is essentially make your way through the movie. Very closely follows the events of the movie, and they are divided into scenes. There are 8 total scenes in the game. You start here at scene 1, and each scene is going to tell you what you need to do in order to progress through that scene. Whether you fail or not will be up to you, but it has conditions that need to be met before you can move on to the next scene. Once you make it through each of the scenes, and then the final discovery scene, if you pass that one, you win the game. Players in the game will take on various aspects of Taylor's psyche, so you're all technically playing the same character, but a different aspect of him. So for example, you've got the Clever Taylor, Cynical Taylor, Commander Taylor, and Defiant Taylor. Now each one has a special ability. I can pull this off the table here. For example, the Clever Taylor, his ability is you have 1 extra reroll of 1 die every time you attempt an encounter. Now you have these focus abilities. If you have a focus token, like this one right here, you can spend it, you can do this ability down here. Like this one, you may spend 1 skill token to raise or lower the value of any one die by 1. Each one is unique, so each player will have a different ability that adds a special, brings something special to the table when you're playing the game. On the card, there's a place where you keep track of your wounds. Your character can only ever get 5, and when they get the 5th wound, you flip it over and they're defeated. Does that mean you're out of the game? No. You still continue to play, your ability changes, but if you take wounds, they have to be divided among the still currently undefeated players. So keep that in mind too, that if you get a wound, you have to go to another player that is not defeated. There are 2 types of scenes. There are major scenes and minor scenes. The sinking ship is an example of a minor scene. It gives you some text here on what's going on. It says what you need to do at the beginning of the scene, and then once you accomplish everything that's on the scene, it basically tells you to move on to scene 2. Major scenes are a little bit different. You've got your text here again to tell you what's going on, but you've also got some setup things that you need to do at the beginning of the scene. For example, over here on the track that you see, that's called the fate track right here with all the numbers, you need to set the Taylor standee at 13, which is where he's at, the Ape standee at 7, which is where it's at, and you can draw 3 encounter cards. This version of the game does come with these miniatures, but you also have these standees too that you can use instead of the miniatures if you want to. In this particular scene, it will also tell you what triggers the end of the scene. So for example here, if the Ape standee advances to 0 first before the Taylor one does, advance the Statue of Liberty standee 3 spaces and move to scene 3. Or if Taylor standee advances to 0 first, move to scene 3. So essentially what you're trying to do is move your Taylor standee down the fate track and make it reach 0 before the Ape standee does. Now that scene said to deal out 3 encounters. This is how you're going to be doing the bulk of your progression. Here's an example of an encounter. This tells you how many dice and what color you're going to be starting the scene with, or the encounter with. This tells you what type of action cards you can play, and this tells you how many rerolls you're allowed. What you're trying to do is roll a certain amount or certain type of dice. So for example, this one, you pass this encounter if you get 3 of a kind of at least 2 or higher. Here is your pass effect. Here's your failure effect. So if you win, you can move Taylor up 2 spaces. If you lose, you have to move the Apes up 2 and Statue of Liberty up 1. If the Statue of Liberty at any point in the game ever reaches 0, you lose the game. These symbols, as I mentioned, correspond to the type of cards you can play in the specific encounter. You'll see that they have various characters on them. Again, if you don't see that character at the top of the encounter card, you can't play it. But they do things like give you extra dice to roll, or let you re-roll a die, or another gray die, there's a white die, because some encounters require specific colors of die. Red counts as either gray or white. So you'll continue along doing things like having those encounters. Other actions you might do are draw action cards, reset so you have others to choose from. You can do a contemplate. You can give an action card to another character. Heal. If you play 2 cards with the same character, you can heal 1 damage. Major healing. If you do 4, you can remove 3. And then there are some other things like play a total of 4 Nova and or Zero and Cornelius cards in any combination to remove the ape standee back 1. So that's helpful. There are some free actions here, and then on the back it gives you a game phase structure. So you got your start scene, which we already went over, action phase, check end of scene, game loss, so that you look at it to see if you've passed the scene. Advance the day track. I'll show you that here in a second. And then you'll pass the active character token and the next player will take their turn. As you're moving your Taylor standee, if he ever lands on a space with the symbol, you have to do that effect. So for example, here, if he lands here, the ape moves forward 1. If he lands here, the active player has to take a wound. You get the idea. Each time a player is done with their turn, they'll move the day tracker. Every time it gets back up to sunrise, bad things happen. For example, this encounter says that every time that track gets to sun, we have to move the ape forward. You'll also see effects like this one, where every player has to take a wound. In addition to doing the day effects on all active encounters, you'll also have to draw a Planet of the Apes card. So here's an example of one. Advance the ape standee 2 spaces and advance the Statue of Liberty standee 1 space. And then there's a continuing effect for that day that you also have to keep in mind as you play. All of this is not lost though, because you have some really what are called special cards, they say, special on the back. And they've got a really powerful ability. So for example, play when 1 die has been rolled for any reason, the active character gains 1 reroll of the die. Or human C, human 2, play at any time, gain 1 skill token, then immediately reshuffle the special card discards. There are some things that say like ignore a Planet of the Apes card or something like that. So they can be very helpful in dire situations. I referred to white dice. Our game actually came with 12 gray dice, so I substituted in some of our yellow dice because we actually do not own 6 white dice here at our house. But the game comes with the 6 gray dice, 6 white dice, 4 red, and then your various tokens, 1 for wounds and 1 for your skills. You'll keep track of your progress through the scenes with this sunken ship standee or the sunken ship miniature. And when you get to scene 8 and you do a final encounter, such as this one that looks a little bit different than the others, you win the game. This one, instead of one person taking on the encounters, everybody, all teammates, will roll dice and try to get a certain roll, and then hopefully you will win the game. So let's talk about Planet of the Apes.
Let's.
Not the movie, the game.
The game. A cooperative adventure game.
It is an adventure.
It is.
You go to these different places having these encounters. Anyway, let's get to that in a minute.
All right.
Let's talk about the overall visual appeal of the game.
All right.
I like the art, don't you?
I do. I think it is very representative of the subject matter of the movie.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Sorry. I'm so excited.
Go for it.
Oh, I was going to say, it comes across as a comic booky to me almost, which makes sense.
Kind of graphic novel.
Which makes sense coming from IDW. I don't know. I'm not well versed in artists, so I don't know if the artist that did this does graphic novels, but it gives me that feel, which is really neat. I like that.
Well, a friend of ours who is well versed in comic books and graphic novels did tell us that the cover artist is pretty well known when it comes to cover art. So
Well,
there's that.
I also appreciate that they didn't take stills from the movie.
Yes, especially from this, since they were going with the original, those photos would have been very dated, just due to the methods that were used to take photos at that time.
Well, and also you've seen games that if they don't use the photos from the movies, they don't really do a good job sometimes of representing the actual artwork from the film. But this, I think they did a great job with that. So
I think so too.
Well done there.
I agree.
Now, the minis in this game, the miniatures, they're not standard. Well, the first print run of this game comes with the miniatures, but after that, they won't. So it's not a make or break kind of deal, but I do feel like some of these miniatures, at least ours, came out kind of floppy almost. Like they're kind of bendy, and I mean, they're neat on the table, but the final form of them maybe didn't get 100% formed.
Well, I know that it was when the way we were playing, and we were trying to keep the flow going really well and everything. It was very easy to get the ape confused with our dude.
Yeah.
And I was like,
we
would look down and go, oh my gosh, oh wait, no, we accidentally moved the wrong person forward.
Yeah, that is a good point. Now with those standees though, because they're colored and you can definitely tell the difference though, so you may just swap those out.
And I do think they stand taller. They are larger than the minis.
Good point.
So I think I do kind of prefer the standees, which...
Unless you want to paint your miniatures.
Oh, yes.
Which we don't.
We don't do that kind of thing. But there are those who do. And I bet that some people could do really cool work on those.
For sure.
Yes.
Let's talk about the cards.
Okay.
What do you think about the card size?
I think it's great because there is a lot of text to read.
Well, not only text, but symbols.
Yes.
We've got to cram in text, symbols, and artwork on there.
Yes.
But the cards aren't too big.
No, not at all.
I think it's a good, and I like the way there's a very varied size of cards. You got the big cards for the scenes and for the encounters.
Right, but then there are small cards for your hand. I agree.
I think it's a good match there. So let's talk about...
Well, and going with that, also the board size.
That board is interesting. I think it serves every purpose that it needs to.
Yes.
Like, there's a place for everything. There's no need for a giant board. That skinny board is the perfect size for what you need to do.
Right.
And again, it's got a great table presence for the artwork on there and the color scheme and all that. So I really like that board. Right. Good point. So let's talk about the game itself. Okay. Just complexity-wise, like how to understand everything that's going on. How do you feel about that?
I think it's pretty easy to get a good hold of.
I think so too. I think that the rule book is laid out very well. Everything is accounted for, nothing's missing, and they have those nice player aids that are very good to refer to. And every once in a while, you have to look for maybe kind of a random issue that you do have to refer to the rule book in, but you can find it pretty easy. But the game itself, it's pretty straightforward as far as what you can do, what you're trying to accomplish, how to accomplish it through the way that the dice rolling mechanism works.
Correct, and it helped that we are players of Elder Sign, which is also designed by Richard Launius.
Exactly.
And so there are a lot of similarities.
There really are.
In how those play.
Well, what I appreciate though in that is you can definitely see the influence from that game on this game, but at the same time it feels different.
Yes, they took it and made it something totally different with the way that the characters move down the track.
Right. Well, and
those things, that does make it very different.
And it's very linear in the encounters that you're having, in that you're not just going, I'm going here, I'm going over there, I'm going over there.
Right, you have to go scene by scene.
Yeah.
Just like the movie.
Yeah. So that works. So, if you've played Elder Sign, you'll see that and it feels familiar, but at the same time it stands on its own.
That's so right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the theme. This is Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
Now, we will not call ourselves fans of the intellectual property.
Right.
We don't really know a whole lot about it. But
it's not that we dislike it.
Yeah, it's just never really came across it.
Yeah. But it was just kind of a, okay, that's there.
But we have played the game with people who have seen the movies and watched it, and every time we'd come across the scene, I remember when this happens in the movie. So it's very representative of the original film.
That's so true.
However,
because of that, And because you are playing through things that happen in the movie, there's only a finite amount of things that are going to happen. And so because of that, there's not going to be any surprises or a whole lot of variation in your gameplays as you replay the game.
Right.
Because I mean, you've seen the movie, you know it's coming, and they can't add something new that wasn't in the movie.
Right. I think that, so if I'm coming across this, let's say I'm a super fan of the movie, right? And I enjoy everything that happens. If this is a movie that I could watch over and over again, never get tired of it, I could see this being a fun game. And that's not to say the game's not fun, right?
Right. Yeah,
we love the mechanism.
We like playing it.
The mechanisms are fun. Mechanically, it's fun. Everything that's going on in the game itself, the design is fun. But as far as the theme that's on there, the story, the plot points that you play through are going to be the same every single time. So the flavor text of the events that come up are going to be the same every time you play, in the same order.
And some of the scenes are short.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's always going to be the exact same thing happening. You come across a pool and you all go swimming and forget about your troubles. And
so
every time.
Those encounters in each scene are randomized, so they do mitigate that a little bit with that, so you're not always playing the same encounters. And I do appreciate that, but as far as the overarching story of what you're playing through, you're not going to have any surprises because it's the plot of the movie and you're playing through it every time. I like to think of it, I thought of it this way, in that if this game was The Dark Knight, because The Dark Knight is my favorite movie, I would be all about playing this movie. I never get tired of that movie. But specifically for us, where we're not like super fans or know much about the movie, it does kind of get stale after a while because, again, you're playing through the same scenes over and over again.
The only randomization is the roll of the dice.
Right. So, again, mechanically fun, but as far as the theme and your playthroughs, it could get stale.
Yes, the subject matter has the effect on the game of being a little limiting.
Yeah.
To what you're going to get to explore in this game. So, going back to the playthrough, what would you say about length of play?
I think the time to play is right. I don't feel like it outstays its welcome. I think that, either...
It can end real short.
Well, that's the thing. You're either going to lose or you're going to go along at a good progress. You've got,
because you definitely don't want to stay too long in a scene because the way the sun goes around there, and the sunrise track, that can be brutal.
It's very balanced in that you're either going to make progress scene by scene or you're going to lose. And I appreciate that. You might as well, cut us out of our misery, put us out of our misery, and let us in the game
rip the Band-Aid off
and start over than to let us hop along.
True.
And it can get down to the wire as far as that Statue of Liberty getting close to the end,
or the Ape Man.
Yes, there are some kind of tense moments as far as it comes down to, like with Elder Sign, one roll of the die, and if you're gonna get it or not. So I like that.
Well, and that's something else I like coming to that is the end game. That is something that's different from the rest of the game. That there are several cards there, but it's just a go one by one and each of you roll. Yeah,
that is neat that the end game is different than the rest of the encounters. So
we don't want to give away too much there.
Yeah, but that is cool. And finally, at the player counts, so we've played a couple different player counts.
You've played
I've
solo.
Played solo, which
We've
is
played 2-player,
which is brutally hard. We feel that it is best that it's full 4 players.
4 players.
Now, because you want to have all of the special abilities of the different aspects of Taylor. Yeah. So I guess feasibly, if you're playing solo and you played with all of those, you could do it, but that's just a lot to keep up with.
Oh, that's so true.
And you could do 2-player, because we've played other games before, we've controlled 2 characters, so I think that's a possibility as well, but I really think in order to have a shot at winning, you need all 4 of those aspects of the character in there.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I feel like we've pretty much summed it up that Planet of the Apes is mechanically enjoyable, but the theme and flavor have the potential to grow stale.
The first time you play through Planet of the Apes, it's great. It really feels like you're part of the movie in every scene that unfolds.
Then the second time you play, it's fun, but Everything feels familiar.
Then after that, you realize you're just repeating the exact same scenes every time you play.
We do want to emphasize that we really like the mechanisms of the game. Taking on encounters and exploring the story in a linear fashion is really neat. We just wish there was a way to see more variety in those scenes.
And so, we give Planet of the Apes a rating of 6 and a seal of approval. A fun game that fans of the movie are sure to love, but does have the potential to become stale.
We're going to box this one up for now. If you want to keep your game nights from becoming stale, check out our podcast where I share game night grub recipes for your friends to munch on. Find it on your podcast platform of choice or our website, marriedwithbg.com.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.